How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. I am, in fact, flying solo today, so it's your opportunity to join the show. The phone number, 844-411-5411. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. Mike Sempervive on vacation. He'll be back tomorrow. And unfortunately, the main topic today, very sad story. Silver King passed away yesterday during a match in London, England, at the age of only 51. The Cubs fan on Twitter confirmed he had passed away. It has since been confirmed by everyone. At this point, it's unclear what the cause of death is, although I should note that record in Mexico suggested that he suffered a stroke followed by a heart attack and passed away. He was wrestling Juventud Guerrera for the Lucha Libre World Promotions, the greatest show of Lucha Libre event at the Roundhouse. King hit Juventud with a flying clothesline during the match, went for a cover. Juvi kicked out, and appeared after this that King was struggling to move. Juventud kicked him, went for a cover. King was unresponsive. Guerrero tried to roll him over. The referee, Black Terry, paused before he hit his hand for the third time, but eventually did make the 3 count, ending the match. According to those in the arena, the rest of the show was canceled. Obviously, besides the story of his death, the big story is the reaction in the ring when he had either a stroke or a heart attack. And Juventud and the referee, they just kept going. Silver King was unconscious, and he was unresponsive, and they just kept going. And they eventually rolled him over and did the pinfall, and Juvi went and celebrated, and the referee was still trying to talk to him, but he was out. And it was probably 5 straight minutes before somebody was in the ring attending to Silver King, who ended up passing away. We could talk about this and so much more in the show today. We will kick it off after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. No Mike Sempervive today, but you can join the show as a co-host. 844-411-5411 is the phone number, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. We have no update on Silver King after the situation yesterday in London. No update. I presume in the next couple of days we'll have more, perhaps a official cause of death, believed to be a heart attack, believed to be a stroke, maybe a stroke leading to a heart attack. We will know soon enough. As noted, the record in Mexico stated he suffered a stroke and then a heart attack. But anyway, one way or the other, he passed away, and it was a full 5 or 6 minutes after he collapsed that they finally began CPR. And by the time the ambulance arrived, I mean, they didn't even take him to the hospital. I mean, they took him to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead at the scene, so it wasn't like he was transported to the hospital and died there. So we'll never know if he could have been saved. Obviously, if you have seen video, it came on very, very suddenly, and it was over. And who knows if he would have had immediate medical attention, if they would have been able to save him. But that is the story, unfortunately, of Silver King. He was a tremendous worker. Obviously, if you were somebody who really only watched American pro wrestling, you saw a lot of him in World Championship Wrestling, where he was very much underutilized. He, of course, played Ramses in Nacho Libre. And in fact, the day that he passed away, he had done 2 shows. In the afternoon, he worked as Ramses on a show. And then later that evening, he worked the second show. And he was working Juventud Guerrero when he passed away. So anyway, we'll follow that story. If you have comments on that, you are welcome to give them. I'm sure we'll get a lot of those. But let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
My question is about Silver King. Do you think these federations, like, say, in Mexico, Lucha Libre at World, will have, like, a stricter, like, health policy, much like WWE did when Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit died? Because it seems like a lot of these international wrestlers are dying in the ring, and it's sort of questionable why you'd have a 51-year-old wrestle twice in one day, because that seems a bit risky to me.
There's plenty of people that work multiple times in one day, and particularly in Mexico. I mean, the issue, I don't even know where to begin. obviously, it would be preferable if you could have an ambulance at all of these different events. But I can remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's 20 years ago? 20 years ago, around here, if you were going to have an ambulance at your indie show, it was like a minimum $1,000. And that was 20 years ago. I don't even know what the cost is nowadays, but it's probably much, much higher than that. And a lot of indie promotions that are running and they sell, 100 tickets, and people are working cheap. They don't have $1,500, $2,000 to spend to have an ambulance there. Now, to me, let's just say that there had been an ambulance and a defibrillator and everything on site last night at that show in London, okay? It was 6 minutes before people got to Silver King. So you could add everything in the world. That's 6 minutes. It's possible that even if you had everything there, the 6 minutes that it took for them to get there, it wouldn't have made any difference. The issue to me is, and I hate to say these things about Juventud Guerrera because the poor guy was in the ring, and it's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. But I don't understand, as a wrestler myself, I don't understand why this kept going. Just a very recent example, just because it popped into my mind. When I had the match with Jungle Boy, I did a senton over the ropes into the ring, and I squished him a little harder than I wanted to squish him. And immediately, as I was going for the cover, I said, "Dude, I'm sorry, that was stiff." And he said, "I'm okay." And we kept going. And that's just one example of a million. People communicate with each other all the time throughout every moment of the match. And when Silver King made a cover and Juvi kicked out and he collapsed, where was the communication? I would presume Silver King was unable to communicate at that point. He was trying to get to his knees for a while. But then when Juvi kicked him and he just went limp, the referee's right there. Juventud Guerrera is right there. Why was Juvi trying to turn this guy over? Why was the referee not stopping the match? It was Black Terry. It's not like it was some random guy who'd never refereed in his life. He's been around forever. All three of these guys have been around forever. And when one of them passed away or whatever happened, I don't know how quickly he passed away, but if he died during that kick and he was a dead body as Juvi's trying to turn him over, what's happening here? Why is he trying to turn him over? Why is he not asking if he's okay when there's no response to matches? I don't understand. So you can talk about all of the things, the ambulance and a doctor there and everything else. If a guy passes away and everything keeps going for 6 more minutes before the stuff gets there, it's not going to make any difference. Just like when Jerry Lawler had his heart attack, this was the one we talked about on Observer Radio last night. He suffered a heart attack on Raw, and he was on headset, and the moment he was out, they got people there instantly, and they saved Jerry Lawler's life. And if Jerry Lawler had that same incident happen in London, no matter how many personnel were there, if 6 minutes would have passed, he wouldn't have made it. So that's, to me, the bigger issue. When something goes wrong in a match, you stop the match and you get help immediately. And I've said many times, sometimes you'll see something in MMA or you'll see a referee's call, and it's God, why didn't the referee jump in early? I've watched this 50 times. Well, you watched it 50 times. The ref didn't watch it 50 times. He had a split second to make a decision. This was not a split second. This was 6 long, excruciatingly long minutes, and there was a tragedy. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hello, this is Jack in Montana.
Yes, Jack.
I was wondering. Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, has right now been the lowest morale has been in WWE, or has there been other periods where it's been lower, like when the Click or the Reign of Terror?
Well, it's hard to say because virtually everybody that was there during the time that the Click was there isn't there today, and vice versa, to do really a comparison. All I can tell you is, morale today in WWE is so bad, and I've heard it from multiple people. And I've heard people, they'll say it like, morale is bad. And I say, I've heard. And they say, no, really bad. So, like, I don't know. It's probably been, I don't know, maybe the worst it's ever been. I'm not sure. I know it was bad, like, in the wake of the invasion. I know a lot of people were unhappy then for different reasons, and obviously the clique made some people's lives miserable, but not everybody's. And in, 96, 97, 98, things turned around, and everybody was making a lot of money, so maybe the early 90s, but it's bad.
No. Thanks. Well, good thing, like, there's going to be competition coming up, because I was in the live during when WCW was around, so this is, like, really fascinating to me.
Well, I got a book for you, Death of WCW. Go read it. You'll find out.
I've been reading it.
Excellent.
Right now.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we're not quite that bad yet for a lot of reasons. Booking-wise, we may be close, but as far as, like, business, I've said it before. The big difference is that Vince owns the company, and Ted Turner did not own the company, so to speak. And they've got so much money that, like, WCW lost $62 million, and then the decision was made to sell them because they were losing so much money, and they got their television canceled. Vince is not selling WWE if they lose money on wrestling operations, which in a lot of different, like, house shows kind of lost money, like, kind of, sort of. They didn't make any money, but I think it was listed as losing money, but they didn't actually lose money. But the point of this is, like, things are down, but Vince isn't going to sell it. And they got so much money that even if they lost television, they could survive for a long time by running the shows on the WWE Network. It would be a disaster, but they would survive. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. No Mike Sempervive here today. If you want to give us a call, 844-411-5411. Text message is 425-780-7566. Bret Hart and Tom McGee's long-lost match is finally being made available to the public. WWE has announced that Hart versus McGee will air on the WWE Network after Monday's episode of Raw. It will be accompanied by a documentary explaining the relevance of the match, how the tape was discovered, and whatever happened to McGee. Special is called The Holy Grail, the search for WWE's most infamous lost match. Hart vs. McGee was a dark match that took place at a WWF Wrestling Challenge television taping in Rochester, New York on October 7, 1986. Dave Meltzer noted that both Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson thought McGee would be the eventual replacement for Hulk Hogan after the match, but McGee never lived up to that hype in the ring, and his career ended in 1990. The VHS tape of Hart vs. McGee was found by Mary Kate Anthony in March from tapes Hart's assistant Marcy Engelstein had her convert to DVD years ago. Hart and McGee will be discussing the match together at StarCast 2 in Las Vegas on May 25th. So there you go. You'll finally get to see the match. It's been talked about for years. Dave talked about it ad nauseum in The Observer. And the story is that WWE has a copy of practically everything. And for whatever reason, they didn't have a copy of that match. And so if you work for WWE, I believe the deal is that you can go to them and you can say, can I get a copy of this match? Can I get a copy of this match? Obviously, it's different today because you just get the WWE Network, but back in the day, they get you a tape of whatever you wanted. And whenever people asked for a tape of Bret Hart, Tom McGee, couldn't get it. And the reason is they didn't have it. But some people thought it was a conspiracy. Some people thought this. Some people thought that. Well, tape has been found. WWE has procured the tape, and it'll be airing on the WWE Network on Monday. So there was a thread on our board. Will Bret Hart versus Tom McGee live up to the hype? And I'm going to answer that for you right now as someone who has not seen the match. No, it is not going to live up to the hype because this match has been hyped up for years and years and years. And the reality is it is a 5-minute, largely squash match. And, like, what can you do in 5 minutes? I mean, it's not designed to be like a great match. It was just a squash match where Bret made Tom McGee look a lot better than he was. And Vince and others said, God damn, there's the next Hulk Hogan. Turns out it wasn't the next Hulk Hogan, but you'll get to see the match tomorrow, and we'll find out if I am wrong about whether or not it is living up to the hype. 844-411-5411 is the phone number. That is 844-411-5411. We have phone lines open right now, so if you want to give us a call, now's a great time to do it, as well as text messages to 425-780-7566. And a big thank you to all of the mothers out there here on Mother's Day, and grannies as well. Granny will be heading over for the Mother's Day festivities right after the show goes off the air, actually, so that should be quite the time. All right, let's do some of the text messages here. Any idea what Shane's announcement about both Money in the Bank matches was going to be, or was it just a setup for the Miz attack? Was it since Wild Card, the Money in the Bank winners can cash on either champ and not brand specific? Well, here's the thing. It was probably a setup for the Miz just running in to attack him. Maybe they've got a plan. I have not heard of a plan. It is possible they had a plan, and by this coming Tuesday, they will have forgotten the plan. I do know that we have lineups for Raw and SmackDown this week, which I'll get into here in a moment. And there's no mention of Shane making another announcement that will affect both of the Money in the Bank ladder matches. So let's go to the phones. You are on the air. What is going on?
Well, how you doing today, Brian? Happy Mother's Day to Granny, Whitney, and all the mothers out there.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to your mother as well.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. My question is this. Well, I got one comment and one question. Let me get to the question first. This AEW quote-unquote TV deal that is going to happen, will be like a seasonal thing, like October through like May, or this is year-round?
We don't know. We have no idea about anything until Wednesday. My guess is it's going to be year-round.
All right. I'm actually interested. It will be on TBS, right?
Well, we don't know. We don't know anything until Wednesday. But it will be on it is believed it will be on either TBS or TNT. One of those two, the main two channels, one of them.
All right. Now, I'm actually kind of sad about this, but that's not the reason why I call. I want to talk about this Silver King situation.
Yeah, stay close to the phone.
All right. So I saw it. It was kind of like not gruesome, but kind of weird in sense like that. It was kind of like for three guys that I've seen wrestle for over nearly 25 years. I'm not going to Silver King, I'm just including the two that I saw. The referee and Hooven too. How can you not have any communication with situations like that? Even an amateur hour has some communication. This was the most amateur thing I've ever seen in my life. And my thing is this, do you think this will be, I'm just talking about for independents, not major companies, but just for independents, especially in this country or in European, that it will get to the point where they're going to have to force them to start having medical personnel? No. I'm not talking about like...
No, so because the way that it works is this. First off, we can talk about America, okay? There's 50 states, and there's probably professional wrestling in every single one of those states, okay? So, first off, every state is either going to have a commission or they're not going to have a commission. So, if your state doesn't have a commission, then, I mean, who's going to force you to have an ambulance at your show? Nobody. So, if the state does have a commission, then yes, the state athletic commission that governs pro wrestling could say, you are required to have an ambulance at your event. And like wrestling promotions and promoters could lobby to try to get that changed. And I'm sure they would, because it's for a lot of them cost prohibitive. So, I mean, unless Trump wakes up and goes, I'm signing into law nationally, there's now a National Professional Wrestling Commission, and we're going to require that every state, it's just not going to happen. There's zero chance of that happening. So, I mean, and then when you go international, it's like, it's just this. And the funny thing is, it's not even funny. It's just like weird. Like I was on our board today, and we did a show last night, myself and Dave, talking about the death of Silver King as the lead story. And then we talked about Bellator, and we talked about UFC, and we talked about WWE. And I woke up this morning, I looked at the thread, and virtually nobody was talking about the death of Silver King. Like, I know it's front page headlines in the UK because he died in London. But it seems to me like this should be a way bigger story than it is right now. Maybe it'll be a big story in this country tomorrow. I don't know. Or maybe it just won't be a story at all. But I feel
Can
that...
I tell you,
go ahead.
Can I tell you a reason why it's not a big story in London? You can understand why.
Yes.
Big story in Mexico, you can understand why. You can understand those two reasons why. If it was somebody, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Silver King the man. I'm knocking Silver King the wrestler. You understand what I'm about to say?
Yes.
If it was somebody,
If it was Seth Rollins, this would be national headlines.
Yes, but Silver King, I'm gonna tell you why. Let me give you a little example of this. So my mom. Speaking of my mom, I would take my mom out to dinner. She always looks at her phone, right? She looks at her phone, so she was on Google, and she said a wrestler died today. I say, and I asked her, I don't know when wrestler died. And I asked her, was it Silver King? She said yes. She asked me about him, and I told her he was like in Mexico he was a big wrestler, but in the United States he was not a famous wrestler, but a mid-card wrestler. And I say that to her, and I explain it to her like that. She's like not like a major superstar, but wasn't well-known wrestler. If it was somebody a little bit more famous, yes, you could probably see him on the national scene. But Brian, I quote-unquote me for saying this person, I'm talking about the character, was famous in Mexico, but this is as you wrote in your book, which is a great book, folks. You got to go purchase it. Has done a lot of damage to a lot of characters, especially Silver King, especially a lot of other wrestlers in there.
You're right, but John, I got to think we got to keep moving here. I want to thank you very much for the call, but I mean, I realize that Silver King is not Seth Rollins, John Cena, Roman Reigns, one of them dying in the ring and nobody doing anything for 6 straight minutes. I mean, it would be a major headline in this country, especially if there was footage of it all over the place. But even though it wasn't one of those guys, and even though it happened in London, I mean, the one thing about wrestling in 2019, which is kind of weird actually, is that there is less interest in it than ever. But there's a lot of mainstream coverage or clips and such of things that happen in WWE. And it wasn't WWE, but it was a wrestler dying in the ring. I'm surprised. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. How's it going this evening?
What's happening?
You was talking about the death of Silver King.
Yeah.
I live in a state in Virginia where we have one of the toughest commissions there is out there. You have to have a rescue squad, you have to have police, and you can't have but so many people in a venue or they're not going to let you have it.
Yeah.
Virginia is a very tough state to have a wrestling match in.
Yeah, every state is different. Some states require a license. Some states don't. Washington State used to require a license, and I had to get blood testing. I had to get the whole 9. Oregon, you had to do all sorts of crazy things. And I think now Washington, I don't even know. I haven't wrestled in Washington for so long, but I think their commission is gone. So, yeah, it's just, in fact, there's no way they have a commission now that I think about it. So, yeah. And when they did, a lot of people just worked on reservations where the rules did not apply.
Exactly. And who knows if it would have saved him or not, but I'm kind of on the side that they at least should have stopped the match. And, 6 minutes is a long time. somebody to lay there.
It is a very long time. And another thing, I want to thank you very much for the call, Jim. Thanks for calling. Another thing to think about is, as much as we say, well, there's no way to know whether it would have saved him or not, that's irrelevant to the discussion. The match should have ended immediately, and people should have been there as quickly as possible. That's the end of the story. And that's how it should be anytime something like this happens. Like, the moment something goes wrong, this match is over. End it. You don't need to pin somebody. It's ridiculous. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm wondering if you think that, so the Fox deal with SmackDown, they're expecting a 3 or they're going to cancel. I'm wondering, why the hell would Fox sign that deal if they had to have looked at the numbers? I'm wondering, what do you think their logic is?
Because
if Raw...
Hold on. You got to stop for a second. This deal was signed last year. And last year, when they were in the negotiating period, SmackDown numbers were up year over year, and a lot of things in television were down year over year. And the numbers were not horrible when they were negotiating. They were actually pretty good. And the idea was, well, since you're moving to a network that has a 25% bigger viewing audience. So if we had 25% to what they're getting on the USA Network, that's around what we're going to get on Fox. Those are good numbers for a Friday night. That's why they made that deal. And once ink was dried, well, things started falling off a cliff, and the numbers are terrible right now, but the ink is dried. The contract is signed.
Do you think that, WWE, they decided, we don't have to actually try anymore?
No, it has nothing to do with that. No, because they send out surveys all the time. They do surveys. They do focus groups. They're constantly trying to figure out why people aren't watching. But...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, the Bray gimmick, that's what's got me interested. And I heard someone last week talking about, in-ring stuff, yada, yada, yada. And I semi-agreed with them. But I'm wondering why aren't they trying that with other guys? I've been complaining that it's just big guy guy who's athletic with facial hair that punches people. And it's homogenized. It's the same. I can't find any personalities with these people. There's some slight personality differences, like Andrade speaks Spanish. Finn Balor he's Irish, but at the end of the day, they all just seem to be guys with chin straps that punch things and do body slams or whatever. And I mean, Bray's Jim Jones-esque character seems, it seems fresh. It seems, maybe a return to the New Gen era, which obviously was terrible in terms of money and sales, but I think in today's day and age, maybe it might be, a shot of adrenaline at the very least.
Well, my friend, I want to thank you very much for the call. So, where to begin here? WCW once did a survey, and they didn't like the answers, and so they just threw it out, and the guy quit. And I kind of feel it's not quite that bad with WWE, but I think they don't like a lot of the answers that they get in those surveys and focus groups. And I think a lot of the things that are suggested are things that they're just not going to do. Like, if you ask me, how could you improve this product? I mean, the first thing I would say is Raw's got to be 2 hours. Well, it's just not going to happen. So that answer's thrown out the window. And, I could say, I'm sick of these scripted promos. And, in their minds, it's like, well, did these guys say they can't cut unscripted promos? They have to cut scripted promos. So that suggestion's right out the window. And I could go down a list of things that I could suggest, and every single one of them, it's like, boom, that's out the window. We're just not going to do that. That's not what we do. We're not pro wrestling. I think a lot of these focus groups, I think if you ask them what they want, their answers are going to basically be, we want pro wrestling. And WWE doesn't want to promote pro wrestling. And so they're just banging their heads. They're hiring people, they're spending money to find out what people aren't watching, and they don't like the answers. I mean, I think that's one of the big issues here. And hopefully AEW can, deliver to wrestling fans some wrestling and maybe wake WWE up. I mean, the issue, obviously, at the end of the day, is Vince is 73 years old. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, everything that caller said about how everybody's homogenized and, Finn Balor's Irish and, Roman Reigns punches guys and has long hair. I mean, dude, go back 30 years. I mean, that's Vince's vision of WWE. His characters are always one-dimensional. They're always one-dimensional. This guy's a repo man. This guy picks up trash. This guy's a big giant. This guy is the ringmaster. That was Stone Cold Steve Austin's gimmick before he did anything else. The ringmaster. He wears black trunks and black boots, and he wrestles. Could you have a more one-dimensional gimmick? And every now and then there's a guy who's so charismatic, it can transcend all that, and you can have a guy that people feel is more layered. When in reality, he's just a one-dimensional character that's managed to find... I mean, Shawn Michaels, for crying out loud. He was a guy that wore earrings and looked in the mirror and he danced. And you were supposed to boo him and be homophobic. I mean, these are the characters that Vince McMahon has created since 1983, and he's going to create them until he dies. That's just what you're going to get. So, every now and then someone's going to break through the pack and be a little more than just a one-dimensional character. But 99% of the people are just going to be something simple. Carlito, I don't like people that don't like to be cool. What does that even mean? But that was his whole gimmick. He'd spit an apple. That's everything they had for the guy. I mean, you're not going to get better than that in WWE. That's just the end of the day. All you can hope for as a fan is that somebody catches fire and the casual audience gets behind them and WWE doesn't screw them up. If that happens tomorrow, this whole thing could turn around in 6 months. But there's very little indication that that's going to happen. We haven't had that guy since The Rock. Even John Cena wasn't really that guy. The last guy that we had like that was The Rock. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then it was The Rock. And it's been nobody since. And that was Rock debuted in like 1996, 1997. So we're talking 23 years ago since they've hit on something like that. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Brian? Tim in Miami. You were just asking the question about why the Silver King death didn't get more coverage, and I texted this in. I don't know if you're going to read it or not, but I think it's because there's no way for the media to link his death to WWE or Vince McMahon. I mean, I guarantee you the first question the reporters asked when this started breaking last night was, was he a WWE guy? When was he in WWE? And the answer is, well, he's not. So they either figure people aren't going to care about it, or it's not the kind of clickbait attention grabber they were really looking for.
Well, the thing you have to think about, Tim, is if you think about the media, I shouldn't say the media is a catch-all, but there's certain media that we all know that they're looking for a way to turn any story into a scandal or a negative. And if somebody really wanted to, I mean, you can't tie directly into WWE like this guy, he never worked for WWE, but you could point out that there was a guy who was 51 years old who wrestled twice in one day and had a heart attack in the ring, and nobody got there to help him until 6 minutes later, and he died in the ring. And do you know that WWE does not provide health insurance for its wrestlers? Are you aware that WWE, you could easily try to do that tie-in, but maybe it'll happen tomorrow, who knows? Maybe this week, last week, or whatever is going to have a segment on it tomorrow, who knows?
Yeah, but they still
it is the weekend.
Put in the headline. They cannot put in the headline, former WWE wrestler died.
No, they cannot say that.
If that were the case, this would be all over the news today, weekend or not. I guarantee you that. Well,
I think if he had been in WWE in 1997, like Silver King was in WCW in 1997, and we're talking he was a guy that was there 22 years ago, I'm not sure that would make headlines all over. If it were somebody who died in a WWE ring, obviously. If it was someone that worked there just a few years ago, I think 22 years ago is kind of stretching it, but maybe. I mean, we'll never know. Hopefully we never know. Hopefully nobody ever dies in the ring again. Although I don't have a lot of faith in that not happening. Anything else, Tim?
No, that was all. Just wanted to weigh in on that.
Go cook some Wagyu for me.
I'll cook some Kobe, my friend.
Thank you very much for the call. This guy. Let's see what we've got here. Is it possible that WWE benefits from the onset of AEW? Well, if AEW debuts on Turner and they draw 1.5 million viewers and people are super into the product and Vince decides, dude, we got to really shake things up. I mean, yes, that could happen. But he is so set in his ways, and listen, even if AEW debuted at 2 million viewers, I mean, they're still not beating WWE. They could debut at 5 million viewers, and they're still not a $7 billion company with, you know, a $2.3 billion television deal over the next 5 years. It's just, they're still not winning. This is not like see, here's the thing. Yes, the Monday Night Wars spurred Vince on to change things. But guess what? In 1995, 1996, WWE was at its lowest point financially ever. They lost $6 million. It was the most they ever lost, ever, was during that period when WCW kicked off Monday Nitro. So it wasn't like they just had competition. They were getting beat. And they weren't just getting beat in the ratings. They were losing millions of dollars a year, and the other company was being bankrolled by a guy with pretty much unlimited money. So they were getting their asses handed to them. If AEW debuts on Turner and does 3 million viewers, even if somehow some crazy stroke of happenstance, they debut and they beat Raw on a Wednesday night in the ratings, like Raw does 2.7 million viewers in the third hour on Monday, and AEW does 2.9 million viewers on Wednesday, they're still not winning. They're doing a little bit better in viewership, but, I mean, they're still number 2 behind WWE. So I don't know if that's enough to spur Vince to change. Now, granted, I could be wrong, because the very creation of AEW has caused Vince to offer guys like Rhino double their contract to not leave. So I could be dead wrong. I mean, it could be that they debut on Wednesday and they do 1 million viewers, and Vince goes, oh my God, we got to change everything right now. They got 1 million viewers. That could happen. All of this is speculative. We won't know until it happens, if it does. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. No Mike Sempervive here today. This person says, is Thug Rose okay after that slam? I see she is suspended for 6 months. Well, the way the suspensions work are, they give you a suspension the night of the show if they deem it necessary, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. If she gets an MRI and she gets cleared, she can be back in 2 months. So that's just that's how they do the thing. So she didn't even go to the hospital afterwards. So, I mean, if she wakes up today, tomorrow, her neck's bothering her, she's probably going to have to get an MRI anyway if she wants to fight. But if she gets that MRI, she'll be back in 2 months. But as noted, she is considering retirement. So we'll see if she ever fights again. 95% of the time when people think they may be retiring, they actually don't. They fight again. And sometimes people even retire and come back and fight. So that's the update on Thug Rose. Seems to be fine, and I don't know how, because I don't even know. When she got dropped on her head like that on that show last night, I was petrified. But apparently, turned out all right. We're out of time here. Later on tonight, we got a special show, myself and Vinny, our weekly look back at NWA World Championship Wrestling from about 30 years ago. I think we're at the end of June or July, 30 years ago. And we do that every Sunday except for example, next Sunday, which just happens to be a WWE pay-per-view, Money in the Bank. So we'll be covering Money in the Bank next week. We'll talk about it on the show tomorrow as well, because Raw is the go-home show for Money in the Bank. SmackDown, the go-home show for the SmackDown side. So a lot of things coming up for both shows. We'll talk about those tomorrow. And I want to thank you all for listening. Thanks, Mike, as always. He'll be back tomorrow. Callers and listeners, over to the studio. Scott, Dom, we'll talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.